So let's go, man. Like, yeah, game analysis.
All right, let's do this.
Neymar didn't come in, but the player who entered at the start of the second half and, in my opinion, changed the game was Hendrik. Not so much because of what he did on the field, but because of the tactical change in the team's setup, right? Brazil started the game in that 4-3 with Ryan playing much more centrally early in the game. Ended up switching to a 4-2-4, which was that formation Ancelotti had been testing a lot, especially before the World Cup. And this time it worked, right, man? I think Brazil generated more attacking pressure and managed to keep pressing Japan until they found the equalizer and then turned the game around. It was much more about willpower, really pushing, pressing hard, more than creating spectacular plays. More or less what happened against Scotland, just with a different game dynamic, in my opinion.
Man, I think Brazil in the second half, it's a really tough game, okay? Against Japan, Japan played really well tactically. They're a very organized team, well connected. They've been playing together for a long time. It's a really well built team. They have good players, but no soccer geniuses, but they're very well set up, very well put together. And so to break down Japan's low block, after Japan made it 1-0, right, in the second half, that's when Ancelotti opened up the field. Borges was already talking about this, right? You give space on the sides so you can try to create something and take advantage of it. That midfield, that central defense of Japan was really crowded. Nice one, Ancelotti, huh? So he puts Hendrik in, brings Rayan more to the wing, and the play is always with Rayan on the wing, right? Vinicius also showed up really well. He didn't hide at any moment in the game. He went forward, tried, almost scored an epic goal, right? The ball hit the post. Brazil in the second half came back with the attitude of Brazil, came back wanting to win the game. With that physical and tactical dominance, they dominated Japan the whole time. Japan didn't pose any threat to Brazil in the second half, and I think Ancelotti's changes contributed to that. Hendrik has this mentality where when you look at him, you see him focused, wanting to score goals or wanting to help. I noticed that I think it was the right move. I would have put Hendrik in too. Neymar, he was cautious because of a possible overtime, right? In fact, Brazil's goal came at 49 minutes in the second half. And then you rest Neymar, theoretically, he would play the next match in the round of 16. Yeah, but I think the most important thing was Brazil's attitude in the second half, the substitutions, Casemiro's redemption since he made that mistake, right? He wasn't playing a good game and ends up scoring the equalizer. Anyway, I think Brazil had the Brazilian spirit. The jersey meant something. The players gave their all, fought for every ball, and we came out with the win today.
I thought the first half was a bit strange. I thought Brazil was a little nervous at the start of the game. It reminded me a bit of the start against Morocco, making passing mistakes. Yeah, but Japan was also making mistakes at the same time. Now, thinking about it, right, with the adrenaline coming down and us thinking more calmly, Japan also didn't really get there. They weren't really threatening the Brazilian team, right? We expected Japan to be able to make more quick attacks like they did when they scored their goal, right? Yeah, Japan couldn't really pull off those counterattacks, and Japan's first goal came much more from an individual mistake by Brazil, an error there when building out from the back, right? And maybe the defensive recovery may have been off too, right? We were talking here about Gabriel Magalhaes, that maybe he took one step too far back at that moment when the team was dropping back to try to prevent Japan's goal. And it was also a really well taken shot, right? We said maybe Allison could have saved it. I don't know if it was savable or not now that I'm thinking about it more calmly. It was a really good shot. The Japanese player Sano hit a shot with rare precision, low into the corner and powerful.
A strong low shot into the corner is one of the toughest for a goalkeeper, right?
Exactly. And then what happened after Japan's goal, which was, in my opinion, the most worrying thing about the first half, was that the Brazilian team got nervous, right? They started showing individual mistakes, passing errors, and very little offensive creation, right, man? Like not much inspiration, right? Brazil fought the whole time, but they lacked inspiration. And in my opinion, a lot of that was because of the tactical formation. Like you were saying, we saw in the first half, Rayan very centralized and fighting in the center of the box with two always being tightly marked.
Three up there, it was very boxed in and giving this.
Danilo, in turn, was providing the width on the right, but nowadays he no longer has that same attacking intensity to create and get to the byline. So it ended up that Vini was on the left trying to make things happen, trying to solve it individually, and there was no one on the right to support Danilo, right? To stick with him, to make plays, to do one-twos. With Hendrik coming in during the second half, that changes things, like you said, Rogerio, because Ryan is able to move more to the right. He stays more fixed in that lane, doing a simpler tactical role and maybe one that's more suited to his characteristics. Vini is on the left with two players in the center. Gabriel Martinelli came on well at the very end of the game.
He was criticized here by the guys.
He was criticized. Bruno Guimaraes, great game by Bruno Guimaraes.
Another assist, especially in the second half.
With Paqueta going off injured, he came off at halftime after feeling something.
Paqueta and Casemiro both left due to injury, okay?
That's true. Bruno ended up taking on more of a leading role in creating plays, and he was crucial with a brilliant pass, man. That brilliant pass that Bruno made for Brazil's second goal, right? The goal that turned the game around. Bruno passed it to Martinelli. Martinelli, right in front of the goal, shot as the goalkeeper came out. To wrap up my comment here, today was one of those love-hate days with Casemiro, right? He was playing really badly in the game, let's be honest here.
It was hate, right? Just hate, right?
The start here wasn't great. He was leaving too much space defensively and got a silly yellow card early on. We were worried here about keeping him in, because of that yellow card in case he needed to stop a play. But on the other hand, he was there to score Brazil's equalizer, a wonderful header from Casemiro, beautiful goal,
And the cross from Gabriel Magalhães, right?
Cross from Gabriel Magalhães, who did that a few times, right?
That cross, Japan stayed very deep and Brazil kept passing the ball around with the center backs and fullbacks trying to break through Japan's defense, right? So they got really close to the edge of the box. In one of those plays, Gabriel sent a cross to the far post and Casemiro was really well positioned right on the line, right? He was nearly offside, but was just slightly behind the Japanese player. And he did really well. That header was really beautiful. Remember, Fernando, that Brazil has been pressuring Japan since the beginning of the second half. There were two chances, but they really dominated in the second half. They hit the post twice, So Brazil deserved it. They really did. The first half was really tense, something to forget. But the second half was Brazil's half with dominance, with tradition, And man, it's great that we made it through. And I'll say it again. What a win. What a win. And every World Cup that Brazil wins, there's always that one game that's the toughest, the one they almost lost, right? In 2002, it was against Belgium. In 94, playing a man down against the United States, Bebeto scored from Romario's assist. It was just 1-0 in the second half. The U.S. were real underdogs and didn't have today's team. It was a team that was they had an amateur player in defense like Alex Lalas, So, that Brazil game usually...
These really tough games, right? They're not against those top-tier teams.
Right, exactly.
Belgium in 2002 wasn't what Belgium ended up becoming.
It wasn't the Belgian generation, right?
The Belgian generation. It wasn't the Belgian generation. To wrap up, we also need to discuss Vini Jr. in this individual analysis. Because even if he wasn't decisive in terms of scoring goals or providing assists like in the last game, man, he once again put the game on his shoulders. I am really liking Vini Jr. in this World Cup. He took charge. And in many moments when the team seemed insecure, the ball would get to him and he would make the right decisions, dribbling when he needed to dribble, looking for the pass when he found himself surrounded. He nearly scored an all-time great goal that, as far as I recall, would have been the most beautiful World Cup goal I've seen.
Man,
if he had scored that goal, he's played in and controls a 50-50 ball. As he controls it, he nutmegs the defender and pushes the ball forward. He keeps controlling the ball, carrying it all the way to the edge of the box. Inside the box, he moves it to his right foot as if he's about to shoot with the inside of his foot or look for a pass. At that moment, he draws both defenders. Both Japanese defenders are marking him. And then he cuts to the left, man. Then he's kind of face-to-face with the goalkeeper. At that moment, he tries to shoot with his right foot, right? He kind of tries to...
With the outside part of his foot, right? Exactly.
He skipped the left-footed shot across goal, surprising the Japanese goalkeeper, who still made an incredible save. The ball hits, right? As we saw here in slow motion, the ball hits the hand, the tip of the Japanese goalkeeper's fingers, the tip of his glove, then hits the post, and, Vini almost scored a spectacular goal.
Suzuki, the goalkeeper, is really good. He made some great saves, right? Yeah, Antonio, what's your take on the game?
So, man, in my opinion, it was like two games, the first half and the second half. In the first half, Brazil was really nervous, like you guys said, but if we look at the numbers objectively, they don't show that. I even pulled up the stats here. Brazil dominated the whole game, right? From the first half to the second. But because of the nervousness that even Fernando mentioned, it felt like there were two different games. In the first half, Brazil wasn't playing tactically the way we've gotten used to seeing them play. And in the second half, Hendrick was more centralized, just like Fernando said. And that really allowed Rayan to move higher up the pitch and Danilo to stay further back, because before it was Danilo who was pushing up the wing. That's true. Yeah, and that also brings more security. The person I criticized the most in this game was Casemiro. Man, Casemiro's a bit of a concern. In the first half, what he did getting that yellow card at around 11 minutes, because today he got away with it, but it might not be the case in the future. So we have to be careful not to commit a silly foul in the midfield.
We've been saying this since the Morocco game, even before the World Cup. When Casemiro drops back on defense, that's exactly what happens. Japan had an open field when Casemiro made a sliding tackle from behind and got a yellow card. Luckily, they didn't score, he wasn't sent off, and he avoided a second yellow.
Exactly. We also need to check on his injury and Paqueta's to see if it's serious or just muscle fatigue. Hopefully, it's only fatigue. Vinicius Jr. once again played really well, but this time the Japanese defense was really focused on him. He was tightly marked. Every time he got the ball, there were 2 or 3 players on him. And something I noticed that I didn't see in today's game and that I really miss is a greater support from the Brazilian midfield when the ball goes to him. Because sometimes he won't always be able to take on 2 or 3 defenders. Sometimes he'll need to do what Neymar did in 2022. Pass it to Paqueta, Paqueta gives it back to him, and he gets into the box. So we also need to play a little closer together, right? Keep the lines a little closer together.
Shall we take a look at some numbers from the match as well?
Let's do it. We created the big chances there. Brazil had 4, Japan had none, right? Japan's goal wasn't a big chance. It came from a passing mistake by Danilo, if I'm not mistaken, which ended up resulting in the goal. We have 19 shots compared to 5 from Japan. Yeah, goalkeeper saves. We had only 1 from Alisson and 4 good saves from Suzuki.
Other good saves, about 2 of them were incredible.
The Japanese team committed 13 fouls, we committed 4.
That number stood out to me. We barely committed any fouls.
Few fouls. We kept our mindset under control, which we discussed after Japan's goal.
For example, Casemiro could have,
He could have, but he already had a yellow card. Remember, that's important. That's true. But as we've discussed in recent live streams, that's the reality. Yeah, Brazil, we didn't know if Brazil had the mentality to turn around a tough game, period. Now we know. They had the mentality, they stayed calm. In front of the box now, Bruno Guimaraes had the maturity and calm to find Martinelli. So, okay, we have the mentality, but we also don't need to suffer. For God's sake, we don't need to suffer. Here's another point I raised in the last live, and I'm mentioning again. We're still not the favorites. We didn't come into this cup as the favorites. But with every step we take, we're giving ourselves more of a chance to get there.
I agree, man. I agree. I think games like today, and just to add to what you said, they help give the team more structure, right? Make the team mature, because this is still...
They haven't played together much with Ancelotti, right?
That's true. That's true. So we already had a very bad debut where the team was heavily criticized, and the team managed to turn things around in the first stage of the cup. And that's what makes a team become a real team. A game like today, knockout, where you finish the first half losing, man, that makes the team stronger again. If we find ourselves again in this World Cup in a similar situation, what goes through the player's mind on the field is this: man, we've already been through this. We've already experienced this. We've already overcome it, and we made it. So games like today, more than the result, more than qualifying, they're games that make a team become a winning team, you know?
Game savvy, right? From like experience, from morale, from the team's confidence. I was gonna point that out so we could wrap up our analysis here too. Exactly. I think games like this make the team grow even more in the competition, and if they go through similar moments, they already know they've had an example of a game just as tough and managed to overcome it. Great win for the Brazilian national team.
Great win. Just to wrap up really quickly, Norway or Ivory Coast, which one would you rather face?
Man, I think I'd rather face Ivory Coast. I think Norway has better players, more quality, one of the best strikers in the world, which is Haaland. They have a strong midfield and defense, plus they're a tall team. I'd prefer to face Ivory Coast, but it will be a tough match for Norway. Ivory Coast is playing well.
I'd rather face Ivory Coast. Sorry, I'd rather face Norway, but I think Ivory Coast will go through, okay? I prefer to face Norway because, man, with Norway, it's like this. Put 2 guys on Haaland, and we kind of know it's a more predictable style of football. Yeah, but I think Ivory Coast will advance just to go against everyone else's predictions.
And for the numbers, for the statistics, it's better to face Ivory Coast. After all, Brazil's record against Norway is terrible. Brazil has never beaten Norway, right? In World Cups, including in '98, they even lost.
You know, over there in the United States, I used to run into some Norwegians, right? And then, you know, just that kind of talk, bar talk. I used to say, hey, hold on. I've won this tournament 5 times, See the stars on my shirt? But the guys replied, you won 5 times, but never beat us. And I'd admit, true, that goal by Tori and Torian Deflo, right? When he does that little dive, historic. Yeah. So that's it, guys. It's Brazil and Norway or Ivory Coast. Which one is it? When is it again, huh? Remind me. Next Sunday.
Next Sunday. So a week to rest, see if the guys can recover.
They'll recover. Paqueta and Casemiro both left today seeming to have muscle injuries, right?
Paqueta left looking like he was in more pain, right? Casemiro seems to have a groin issue. Paqueta maybe something in his ankle or calf. I'm not sure, but Paqueta's seems worse. I don't know if he'll return for the next game. Yeah, and remember that Rafinha was already training without pain. He could be a new option on the bench for the next game as well. And even though he wasn't doing well at the start of the World Cup, he's a great player, a world football star. And yes, we count on him. I think if Brazil keeps taking it step by step, we'll get there.
That's it, guys. So to wrap up, man of the match. Man of the match, Bruno Guimarães.
Bruno Guimarães.
Let's go with Bruno Guimarães, another assist. 3 votes to 0, unanimous, playing really well. He improved a lot with the Anti-Logica.
That's it, guys. The 6th title is coming.
It's ours.
It's ours. Thanks, Tony. That wraps up the analysis.